Welcome to the deep dive. If you're here, you're looking for that high-impact knowledge that, well, shortcuts you past all the noise. Today, we are dissecting the beautiful challenge of architectural photography. Specifically, that transition from a stunning color image to something that's truly striking, a permanent monochrome photograph.
It's so much more than just hitting desaturate, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're looking at sources that really zero in on the key challenge of pre-visualization. If you're a photographer, you have to figure out right there in the moment which color shots are actually suitable for this. Our mission today is to move past that, subjective, oh, that looks nice, and identify the quantifiable things, the tone, the form, the light, that don't just survive without color, but actually thrive.
And this is such a practical problem. I mean, if you're shooting architecture and your camera or your phone doesn't have a live black and white preview.
Which a lot of them still don't, not accurately anyway.
Exactly. You're forced to look at this vibrant, colorful scene and somehow see it in pure grayscale in your head. You need a checklist. So I think the core question for our deep dive is, what are the fundamental elements you have to focus on to make sure your monochrome shot is a success?
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the foundational principle here, and this comes straight from the source material, is that monochrome conversion needs a totally different way of seeing than color photography. If a picture relies on color to separate things, like, say, a red door against a green wall, it's probably just going to collapse in black and white.
So the subtle difference between that red and green might just disappear.
It could, yeah. You could just end up with two middle gray tones blurring right into each other. All that impact is gone.
So this sounds like what we're really defining is the difference between just, simple desaturation
Right.
and a really sophisticated black and white conversion. If I just remove the color, I'm only touching the hue and saturation. But a real conversion, that's about manipulating the luminosity, right?
Yeah.
The brightness values of the underlying color channels. Precisely. You're controlling the spectral response. Think of it this way. The red channel and the blue channel might look equally bright in a color photo. But in a true conversion, we can use software to, say, artificially darken that blue channel. It mimics what a physical red filter used to do on a film camera. And that manipulation, it fundamentally changes the whole relationship between the elements in the frame. So the photographer has to go in with that intentionality, already seeing the final output, and pick a scene where the qualities are already there, ready for that kind of tonal violence.
So we're essentially hunting for architecture where the form is just way more powerful than the pigment. I'm thinking of something like a stark, rough, concrete, brutalist building. The color is almost irrelevant. Its suitability is super high because it's all about shadow, texture, and mass.
Exactly. Now contrast that with, I don't know, a really ornate Art Deco building that's covered in colorful tiles. Yeah. If that building's whole impact comes from like bright blue tiles against yellow trim, that is a really high-risk conversion.
Right. It would probably just look flat.
But if that same building's impact comes from its repeating geometric shapes, its setbacks, and strong light that's carving out deep shadows, well, that's B&W gold. We're looking for pure lines, shapes, and texture, things that can define the geometry without any help from color.
That distinction really crystallizes it. We're shifting from the appeal of the material's color to the actual structural integrity of the design. Okay, so let's get practical. Our sources gave us a great case study, an interior shot, right? A complex ceiling, and a skylight that was basically a perfect candidate.
Yes, that image is the ultimate checklist.
Yeah.
And the first point was completely non-negotiable. The scene had to have strong contrast. And we're not talking about little details, but a broad, measurable difference across the whole image. Usually that comes from really powerful directional light.
And the second point was that the original color was forgiving, I guess. The source said it had a really limited color palette to begin with, mostly white concrete and gray metal. So the color wasn't a distraction. The conversion didn't have to, fight the image to create contrast.
And that leads right to the third and maybe the most critical point. The image had distinct tonal variation. Because it was a skylight, you had these incredibly bright areas where light was pouring in. And those were contrasted with these deep, dark, shadowed parts of the concrete structure underneath. So you already have this huge dynamic range, a bright white and a deep black, that the conversion can just grab onto and enhance.
So if the color image already has that full range from light to dark, if it's already inherently tonal, then the monochrome process is just optimizing. It's not trying to rescue a flat image.
Exactly. Which is why the source then moved into the technical side of it with this perfect image. They tested 4 specific black and white filters in Google Photos: Oinks, Eiffel, Vogue, and Vista. And this wasn't just random. It was about seeing how different tonal curves would interpret that same strong contrast.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. The names alone kind of hint at what they do. What did the source find when they applied these to the architectural shot?
Well, each filter, it applies its own unique curve. So a filter like Onyx is generally known for being really aggressive. It crushes the shadows, pushes the highlights, and goes for maximum drama. That might emphasize the skylight beams, for sure, but you could lose all that great texture in the mid-gray concrete areas.
Ah, okay. Whereas something like Vogue or Vista, I'm guessing that would be a softer touch, maybe more painterly, preserving those midtones.
That's it. It would aim to preserve the subtle surface texture of the concrete instead of just turning it all into a black silhouette. The source was basically trying to find the filter that kept the structure's integrity, its lines, the shadows, without killing the texture of the material itself. And when you start with an image that's already got that strong contrast, the conversion is it's a refinement. It brings immediate clarity.
And that technical process leads directly to the aesthetic outcome. When you strip the color away from a suitable image, the viewer's focus completely shifts. You're forced to engage with the fundamentals, the elegant curves, the sharp lines, the overall geometric structure.
Yeah, the removal of color transforms the scene. It goes from being a record of a place to being an abstract study of light and form. The interplay of light and shadow on that ceiling becomes the only compositional element that matters. The resulting mood, as the sources noted, is just so much more structural, sculptural, and contemplative. More than the color version could ever be.
But hold on, if we're manipulating the light and dark that drastically, aren't we? Aren't we changing the architect's intent? Does it stop being a record of the architecture and become a photograph about the architecture?
Here's a brilliant question, and that's where the art of it lies.
Yeah.
Think about it. If the architect wanted the concrete to feel monolithic and massive, a good B&W conversion that emphasizes shadow and volume actually amplifies that intent. If the color version was weak or distracting, the monochrome image rescues the fundamental geometry. So you could say it's an act of editorial clarity.
Clarity. I like that. And that clarity became even more obvious when the source moved on to an advanced example, an automatic conversion done by the AI model Gemini. And apparently this result was even more dramatic, even better than the first 4 filter attempts.
Oh, this part was fascinating because there was a specific, tangible benefit to this advanced conversion that wasn't just about aesthetics. The source pointed out that the AI conversion effectively hid distracting elements on both edges of the frame, where the photo went a little too wide into some cluttered areas.
So the AI didn't just slap a filter on the whole thing. It sounds like it did localized, intelligent adjustments. It used the light and shadow like a scalpel, not a blanket.
Exactly. It's highly likely the model did some kind of spectral analysis. It distinguished the intended subject, the clean concrete beams, from the junk on the edges. That junk might have had some subtle color fingerprint that our eyes just glong over. But by recognizing those outliers, the AI could apply this really deep, localized darkening just to those edge areas, making them recede into pure black.
Wow. So instead of just enhancing what was good, the AI actively used the conversion to delete visual noise. It decided that the ceiling's geometry was the most important thing, and anything that challenged that had to go.
Precisely. By crushing those distracting edges to black, the viewer's eye is immediately laser-focused on the skylight, the central lines, the symmetry. The geometry became so much cleaner and sharper, all because of a subtractive process. You lost unwanted information in the frame.
That is a profound takeaway. So the power of black and white isn't just about adding some artistic vintage vibe. It's an active tool for visual triage. It enhances geometry by reorganizing the composition. So what does this all mean for you, the person who wants to take these kinds of photos?
It means that if you're approaching architecture with monochrome in mind, you have to be a hunter of light and contrast first. You have to look past the red brick or the blue sky. It's all about pre-visualizing the tonal map, not hoping to fix it in post-production. You need high contrast, a limited color palette to begin with, and strong inherent geometric forms.
Right. So our deep dive really confirms it. Success in architectural monochrome all comes down to that pre-visualization. You have to seek out scenes where the natural light is creating incredible shadows, where color isn't the main story, and where the geometric structures can really dominate the frame.
And this raises a bigger question, one that goes beyond just photography. The most powerful transformations don't just drain color, they fundamentally reorganize the frame. They use tone and light contrast as an editorial tool to hide or even delete unwanted elements. And in doing so, they give that enduring geometric structure a new, sharper purpose, a greater impact.
That structural reorganization is what turns a decent color photo into a truly transformative black and white image. So for your own exploration this week, try this. Take a look at a busy photograph you've taken and just consider what element in that composition needs to disappear tonally, not physically, for the true underlying structure to emerge in all its geometric glory. We'll see you on the next deep dive.